Hello once again everybody, it's been a while, and to compensate for our absence, we here at the Fact Rant have constructed a whole new series simply called The Controversy. We posted the goal of this new series on our Facebook page, but for those of you who don't know, in this series you ask us to talk about typically controversial topics you would like some clarity on. Then we pick one, the most ass one that is, and do in-depth research that you're too lazy to do yourself, in order to give you an informed opinion on the issue and shed some light on both sides of the coin, and hopefully make it easier for you to come to your own personal conclusion on these great topics. We got some suggestions from our Facebook page, and you guys kept asking us about the controversial talk surrounding Selena Gomez's 2012 performance Come and Get It while wearing an Indian-themed garb, Miley Cyrus twerking, or trying to, and the most recent Pharrell Williams incident in 2014 where he was on the cover of July's Elle UK with Native American headwear. People requested apologies and displayed their disgust with the celebrity's actions, while some praised them for their efforts. Seeing how many of these comments we got, the topic for the first episode is basically cultural appropriation. So, cultural appropriation. What is it? Is it good or is it simply bad? I'm Jed, and this is Fact Rant. So it looks like it's time for a quick briefing on the topic before we get into the meat of the matter. Cultural appropriation. What's the deal with it? And why are so many people mixed up on the issue? By definition, cultural appropriation is the adoption of elements of one culture by members of a different cultural group, especially if the adoption is of an oppressed people's cultural element by members of the dominant culture. Sounds kind of depressing, especially the whole oppressed culture part. So, is it really a bad thing now? Does this definition cover all elements of cultural appropriation? Well, let's find out. Okay, if we're gonna get to the bottom of this, we'll have to talk about it in terms of something serious, something we both understand and can relate to. Anime. By definition, anime is a style of Japanese film and television animation typically aimed at adults as well as children, or as I like to define it, one of the best things on the planet. So anime, Naruto, Bleach, Attack on Titan, Sword Art Online, Tokyo Ghoul, etc. These are all examples of anime. Now let's see, what makes it what it is, so to speak. Sure, it has good characters that we can relate to, and a good storyline most of the time. Even good action, but there are some things that are just unique to anime. Or they were. Such as speedlines, and what I like to call the pause, or dramatic pause, and abstract backgrounds. Speedlines or movement lines are seen in anime primarily to indicate quick forward or backwards movement. It also occurs when focus needs to be on a certain character or characters to add emphasis, like this. Now the pause is an anticipation. Right before an action scene that you know is gonna happen, there's a pause in most subject movement, sound, etc. before the first move.
Alright son, do you drink? No. Do you smoke? No. Are you sexually active? No.
Last but not least, we have abstract backgrounds. They're much like speedlines, except their main focus is to add emphasis on characters at a certain point of time. Say the character is sharing a piece of important information that needs to grab the audience's attention. Abstract backgrounds. Or maybe a character gets mad and hits another character and needs to have a freeze frame of their annoyed face. Abstract backgrounds. These are some of the great cinematography methods that are not exclusive to anime anymore.
For a moment, I thought you were serious, but I am.
You'll notice that in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, movement lines that we just discussed, this thing, are used. They have taken this specific element of anime and used it in Western film. Now you can see the difference between the two art styles, and it looks good. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World also uses abstract backgrounds. This is when the backdrop is spontaneously changed to indicate the character's mood and add some emphasis to their action. Another thing is the action pause. There is not really a set name for it, but it's just a thing that you know when it comes. That
it's about to go down.
moment in the movie where you know the action is going to spark. Now, this did not become popular in the US before cyber classic The Matrix. You'll recall Keanu Reeves getting stopped at a checkpoint, then killing everything in sight. Right. Well, just before that happened, there was an anticipation to the impending action simply by this pause.
Holy shit!
Great, right? But where did we get this from? Like we said, anime. Before its official release, The Matrix had an older brother, the anime called Ghost in a Shell, which focuses on the same alternate reality concept that we see and love in The Matrix. Producer Joel Silver was approached by Lana and Andy Wachowski, directors of the live-action film, and was showing the 1995 anime cyber classic and was told by the two, quote, "We want to do this in live action," end quote.
And so now you're taking existing elements and kind of recreating them.
Yeah.
We see something akin to this when we look at Inception as well. This visual masterpiece also took cues from anime. Christopher Nolan said, Satoshi Kon's 2006 Paprika was a great source of inspiration for the movie. You see, anime addresses real-life issues and hard realities that everyone has to face or has considered. It crosses the boundaries that Western cartoons did not, or probably could not. Without anime and its amazing concepts, we may not have had The Matrix, Inception, and that cute costume from Sucker Punch. Yeah, the main protagonist's costume and the dreams were based off of a classic anime schoolgirl stereotype. Not like I looked that up or anything, kinda just found it one day. Anyway, this is cultural appropriation, believe it or not. And it's new. We have never had these elements used in live-action films rather than animated ones. And it's great. People loved it when it just came out, and even now. This is a new art style, and a new take on the original, and it's amazing. At least that's what the movie's $171 million profit says. Just saying. So we have looked at this appropriation of speed lines and dramatic pauses, as well as far out and cool anime concepts. So far it sounds great, right? It makes people happy, both in the US and in Japan. The US takes the anime and uses its elements and avoids staying the same in the movie making industry and other areas. Japan gets paid for the product and gets positive exposure. Yay! But wait, Jed, this sounds so good. Why do people say it's bad? Right, the whole negative connotation attached to the thing. Good question. If it sounds so great, when you really think about it, why the bad stigma? According to Nadra Karim Niddle, race relations expert, cultural appropriation typically involves members of a dominant group exploiting the culture of a less privileged group, often with little understanding of the latter's history, experience, and traditions. First of all, it's all about intent, whether you know about the culture or not. None of the people that we mentioned in the beginning, Miley, Selena, Pharrell, use elements from other cultures with malicious intent, and some like Pharrell were naive to the element that they were using, what it represented to the original culture, that is. He did not really know what the headpiece represented to the Native Americans, but did he try to degrade them or make fun of the culture? Plus, is there even a law banning cultural appropriation? I personally have never heard of a law that states Miley Cyrus cannot and will not twerk because she's white. Furthermore, mixed races and cultures, that is the way the world is heading. According to Zach Cheney, senior staff writer at Mike, in an article in association with a study done by Lisa Funderburg, independent writer and journalist working with National Geographic, studies show that by 2050 the dominant race in America will be none. What I mean by this is most people in the US around the world will look like this, and not because they did plastic surgery, but because they were born this way, born to white and black parents, or Chinese and Indian, or maybe their parents were multicultural themselves. Quote, the US Census Bureau lets respondents check more than one race for the first time in 2000, and 6.8 million people did so. By 2010, that figure had increased to nearly 9 million, a spike of about 32%, end quote. There are over 350 million people living in the United States today. The number of multicultural people in the US given by the Census Bureau, which was 15,800,000 since 2010, will double, even triple every new generation. That is the current number times 3, which gives us 47,400,000. Now imagine that increase getting bigger every 3 years until 2050 and beyond, just to put things into perspective. So, what do you tell these people when cultural roots are so mixed up and it becomes so hard to keep track or care anymore, and everyone sees people as just people? How can you still say that certain things are exclusive to one race and its culture? Because according to these studies and the amount of multicultural people you're seeing on the road today, that sort of thing won't matter before long. In any case, the world is mixing on all levels, and new cultures have formed and more will emerge whether we like it or not. It's only a matter of time. Secondly, a lot of negativity that is placed on cultural appropriation can be overlooked and converted to good. There is a problem with this notion though. People are only focusing on the negative aspects of cultural appropriation, and they are only speaking about the times and context in which it does not work. Sadly, this is what you see more online than the good. One would have to look and discern positive appropriation for themselves. And how many people will actually dig into the matter rather than believe the first mainstream explanation that they find online? Not many. In fact, I wouldn't have if you guys didn't ask this question. This is one of the factors contributing to the less than favorable name that this action has. The second is the fact that people do not want to join with other cultures, and they're too fixed on the past and not thinking of the future. Being individual and distinct nations are what certain people are afraid of losing, when it seems all they need to do is remember their heritage and move on to new exciting cultural add-ons, so to speak. Basically, people are afraid of change. Now going back to the quote, we must ask ourselves, is this really a typical case? No, not really. Compared to the amount of times that cultural appropriation has helped and done considerable amounts of good for both the adopting culture and the original culture, it is safe to say that this statement is not exactly accurate. Aside from what we already discussed, anime brought a new form of animation to the US and opened a big new market in Japan, and because of this, it has grown much more and faster than ever since its conception in 1917. In fact, the word Japanimation used to have a negative meaning. When it was referring to older anime in the 1980s, it was thought of differently, opposed to what it means now due to the widespread of Japanese culture through this animation. It has now simply been replaced with the word anime, and mostly everyone loves and knows the name. Just recently, the anime adaptation of Shingeki no Kyojin, or better known as Attack on Titan, saw sales of over 22 million copies of the manga series since the animation's release. This was very good for business in both Japan and the United States. Now on the other hand, there is a team in the US known as the Redskins. The name alone caused unrest in the Native American community and is a controversial issue to the general public. The team is actually trying to hold on and defend the name. This is a prime example of when it does not work. We should know better than to use a tool like cultural appropriation in this way. We simply need to acknowledge the rules of cultural appropriation and abide by them, and it will work. It is the mundane positives that count in this sort of situation, not the blatant mistakes of corporate entities and people using cultural appropriation with malicious intent. There is a certain context in which we should use it. You wanna make a movie with a hint from anime that makes us all feel good? Or go for it. You wanna boost sales in 2 countries by releasing an anime version of a popular manga? Great, do it, the economy needs a boost. Wanna modify already amazing rock that it even sounds better? Go for it. Bring anime conventions? Amazing! But calling a team the Redskins after you basically took the people's country from them? Here's a fact. According to the Library of Congress, I quote, in 1838, as the deadline for removal, prompted by then-President Andrew Jackson, approached, thousands of federal soldiers and Georgia volunteers entered the territory and forcefully relocated the Cherokees. Americans hunted, imprisoned, raped, and murdered Native Americans. Cherokees surviving the onslaught were forced on a 1,000-mile march to establish an Indian territory with few provisions. Approximately 4,000 Cherokees died on this trail of tears. End quote. I guess that's why doing this, then calling a team the Redskins, it's like watching Boku. You don't. We have to be real here. The reason that this is bad is because it's insensitive and is not right to the Native American people. So, cultural appropriation has a bad side depending on how you go about it. Just like the internet has a bad side depending on how you use it. So, just because the internet has the potential for evil, does that make it evil? Or just because all people have the potential to be evil, does that make them evil? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves in order to take a stand on the issue, especially on topics as relevant and beneficial as this one. So, the answer is yes, cultural appropriation is more in the green than in the red. People should be able to express themselves in the way that they want to, and use cool things that other cultures do, but like most other things, just keep it in context. So there you go, cultural appropriation is more white than black, and it's also like drinking alcohol, just try to drink other cultures responsibly. Or was it don't eat ice cream in Japan? You know what I mean. As always, if you haven't, make sure you check out our Facebook page, the links are in the description, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Jed, and this has been Fact Rant.